Character Study Number 1, The Education of Elizabeth Bennet. Hello, and welcome to a new series here at the Emotive Archive, our in-depth character studies. In these special episodes, we will move beyond plot analysis to dissect the complex inner worlds of literature's most fascinating figures. And there is no better character to begin with than the very soul of Pride and Prejudice, the brilliant, witty, and profoundly human Elizabeth Bennet. She is often celebrated as a romantic heroine, but to see her only in that light is to miss the true, radical nature of her story. Elizabeth's journey is not primarily a quest for a husband. It is a difficult, painful, and ultimately triumphant intellectual journey to the most elusive prize of all. Today, we will analyze the education of Elizabeth Bennet, an education that takes place not in a schoolroom but in the unforgiving theatre of society. Elizabeth enters the novel as a fully formed intellectual force. She is the favourite of her father, a man who values wit above all else, and she has inherited his sharp, satirical eye for the follies of her neighbours. Her mind is her fortress, and her wit is her sword. In the opening chapters, we see her wield this sword with dazzling effect. She is unimpressed by wealth, unswayed by status, and unafraid to challenge social convention. She deftly parries the foolishness of her mother, the absurdities of Mr. Collins, and even the intimidating arrogance of Lady Catherine de Bourgh. This intelligence is what makes her so compelling, so modern. She sees the world with a clarity that eludes almost everyone around her. She is, she believes, an impeccable judge of character. And this very belief, this pride in her own perception, is the seed of her greatest flaw. Her defining characteristic is what the novel calls prejudice, but what modern psychology would label as a powerful confirmation bias. The moment Mr. Darcy slights her at the Meryton ball, her brilliant mind forms a hypothesis. This man is the embodiment of pride. From that point on, her intellect ceases to be a tool for objective discovery and becomes a weapon for subjective confirmation. She actively interprets and magnifies any piece of data that supports her initial thesis, while dismissing any that contradicts it. When Jane suggests that there might be a misunderstanding with Darcy, Elizabeth dismisses it as her sister's naivety. When Charlotte Lucas makes a pragmatic marriage, Elizabeth judges it as a betrayal of principle. She is so confident in her own initial reading of the world that she becomes blind to any alternative interpretations. This intellectual blind spot is most powerfully and divestingly exposed in her interactions with Mr. Wickham. He is the ultimate test of her judgment, and she fails it completely. Wickham arrives as a charming, handsome stranger, but his greatest asset is his story. His narrative of being a wronged victim at the hands of a cruel, jealous Darcy is a work of manipulative genius because it so perfectly confirms what Elizabeth already believes. It is the missing piece of evidence she has been subconsciously searching for. She, the astute observer of human nature, accepts his story without a shred of suspicion. She ignores the profound impropriety of a man sharing such a damaging story with a near stranger. She overlooks the inconsistencies in his tale. Why? Because his story feels true to her. It aligns with the portrait of Darcy she has already painted in her mind. Her belief in Wickham is not a failure of intelligence, it is a failure born from her intelligence, a pride in her own ability to judge which makes her vulnerable to a story that flatters that very judgment. First great shattering of Elizabeth's worldview occurs, fittingly, not through dialogue, but through the quiet, private act of reading. Darcy's letter, delivered after his disastrous first proposal, is a narrative bomb. It does not seek to charm or persuade, it presents a methodical, factual counter-narrative to everything she thought she knew. It deconstructs her two most cherished certainties, the villainy of Darcy and the victimhood of Wickham. The letter provides evidence, details, and names, such as Colonel Fitzwilliam, that she can, in theory, verify. It forces her to move from the realm of feeling to the realm of fact. Her reaction is a portrait of profound psychological turmoil. She begins by rejecting it entirely, her prejudice a powerful shield. But she cannot dismiss the evidence. She rereads, she reflects, she remembers. She recalls Wickham's inconsistencies, his avoidance of Darcy, his sudden pursuit of Miss King. The pieces of the puzzle begin to reform, creating a new, horrifying picture. The climax of this process is not anger at Darcy, but a deep, burning shame directed at herself. She utters the novel's most important line, "Till this moment, I never knew myself." It is a devastating and crucial admission. She, who prided herself on her perception, realizes that she has been blind, partial, prejudiced, and absurd. Her fortress of intellectual superiority has been razed to the ground. This is the beginning of her true education. If the letter was the intellectual catalyst, the visit to Pemberley is the emotional and aesthetic confirmation of her new understanding. As an art director, one must appreciate the genius of the section. Austen uses the landscape and architecture of Pemberley as a direct reflection of Darcy's true character. It is the ultimate show, don't tell. Elizabeth arrives expecting to see a monument to pride, a house like Rosings, opulent, ostentatious, and designed to display power. Instead, she finds something entirely different. Pemberley is grand, yes, but it is a house in perfect harmony with nature. The stream is not forced into an artificial shape, the woods are not overly manicured. It possesses a natural beauty. This speaks of a master who is confident, tasteful, and respects natural order, rather than imposing his own will upon it. The house itself is large and handsome, but not gaudily furnished. It is a portrait of quiet dignity, good taste, and substance, not of arrogant display. This visual evidence is then supported by the testimony of the housekeeper, Mrs. Reynolds. Her genuine, unprompted praise of Darcy as a kind master, a loving brother, and a generous landlord provides the humanizing details that Elizabeth so desperately needed. This is the Darcy that exists beyond the ballroom, the man known not by his public persona, but by his private actions. The final piece of evidence is, of course, the appearance of Darcy himself. The man she meets at Pemberley is not the man she rejected at Hunsford. This new Darcy is gentle, courteous, and completely devoid of his former stiffness. His graciousness towards her working-class relatives, the Gardiners, is a stunning refutation of her belief that he is an insufferable snob. He is actively performing the character that both his house and his housekeeper have testified to. For Elizabeth, this is the final, overwhelming proof. The flawed, monstrous portrait she had painted has been utterly destroyed, replaced by a masterpiece of quiet nobility she is only now beginning to appreciate. The final stage of Elizabeth's education is tested by two last confrontations. The first is the crisis of Lydia's elopement. Here, the new Elizabeth is revealed. There is no pride in her own family's virtue, only shame and a sense of shared responsibility. She confesses the entire sordid affair to Darcy, an act of vulnerability and humility she would have been incapable of at the start of the novel. She believes this family disgrace has permanently sealed their fate, yet her judgment of Darcy is now based on empathy, not prejudice. The second confrontation is with Lady Catherine de Bourgh. This is Elizabeth's final exam. Here, her wit and defiance are no longer just the tools of a rebellious spirit, but the weapons of a mature woman defending her own agency and emotional truth. She does not stoop to Lady Catherine's level of insult. Instead, she meets the older woman's aristocratic fury with calm, logical, and unshakable integrity. She refuses to be bullied, not out of pride, but out of a deep sense of self-worth. This is the fully realized Elizabeth Bennet, a woman who has integrated her intelligence with a newfound humility and self-awareness. In conclusion, Elizabeth Bennet's story is so enduring because it is not about a girl finding a prince. It is about an intelligent mind learning the limits of its own intelligence. It is about the difficult, humbling journey of deconstructing one's own biases and learning to see the world with clearer eyes. Her happily ever after is not a prize she is given, but a state of being she earns through painful self-reflection and profound intellectual growth. She is a timeless heroine because her struggle is universal. In an age of information overload and polarized opinions, Elizabeth's journey from confident prejudice to humble self-knowledge is not just a classic story, it is a necessary lesson. Thank you for joining me in this character study. I invite you to share your thoughts on Elizabeth's transformation in the comments below.